In this video, which is brought to you by the RCA's Power Meter partner, Accioma, I will provide a framework or 4 general rules which have worked really well for Road Cycling Academy members that you can also leverage into your own cycling training plan if you're looking to start implementing high intensity interval training. Now quickly, for those of you who may not be aware, high intensity interval training involves repeated efforts on the bike that are more intense than say just general riding, followed by strategic rest or recovery periods. And high intensity interval training is a must if you're looking to get stronger on the bike, and I'll link to many studies below. But the problem or the challenge with high intensity interval training sessions is this: they come at different intensities, different rest periods. There's the Tabata protocol, the 40-20s, 20-10s, SIT, aka sprint interval training. The list kind of goes on. So it's like, where should I start? What should I do? So to alleviate that confusion, these are simple rules that you can use to start incorporating HIIT training. Now, before we get into it, there's a template that I want to pull up for this piece of content, and that is the 7 training zone model we use at the RCA. This is a calculator which I'll link to below. Looking at this, you might be wondering why the heart rate measure, both max heart rate and lactate threshold heart rate, don't really give you an accurate range beyond zone 5. Simply put, heart rate is too slow to respond beyond this level of training, and as a result of that, if you're looking to effectively incorporate HIIT training into your overall plan, we recommend purchasing a power meter. And in addition to that, doing an FTP test. We'll link to some FTP tests you could do below. Work out your 7 training zones, power-based. And if you're going to do that and you're yet to buy a power meter, or you're looking to invest into a new power meter, we recommend Accioma, of course, the partner of the RCA. Reason being, number 1, they are very, very easy to install and set up. You simply screw them in like any other pedal system, charge the inbuilt battery unit, which has a 50-hour battery life, and quickly set up some basic parameters such as crank length using a simple app interface. But it's the accuracy of the Acciomas that we appreciate most as a coaching organization. When we get our members to go out and do high intensity interval training, they're typically on roads with bumps, divots, undulations, and many power meters use something called average angular velocity, meaning they're assuming every pedal stroke is consistent, smooth, the same in order to get the power reading. But this is often, in fact, mostly not the case with recreational and amateur road cyclists. And if their power meter has average angular velocity, it means we're not getting a true power reading representation. Accioma, on the other hand, their power system has a built-in 3-axis gyroscope, which enables instantaneous angular velocity. In other words, a truer representation of what power you're applying through each and every pedal stroke. And this is a very good value add if you're looking to incorporate high intensity interval training into your overall plan. So, rule number 1 is be realistic about your current fitness. If you're new to interval training or just getting back into it, at the RCA, we would recommend that you start at the bottom of the tree and work your way up. This is on the zone scale we pulled up earlier, starting with zone 3 or bottom end zone 4, or what some call sweet spot efforts, which is roughly 88 to 94% of your functional threshold power. Initially, just incorporate 1 high intensity interval training session per week. And if you're demonstrating consistency, after a month, you might like to add a second HIIT session. Just ensure you do a proper warm up and cool down after each session, and resting well between sessions, spacing them out at least 48 hours apart. And in that second HIIT session you start to incorporate, you might target a more advanced zone. However, if we go back to that zone 3 tempo example as a starting point, you could start your effort length around the 3 to 5 minute mark, taking a good 5-minute recovery between each effort in zone 1, and target 2 to 3 efforts in your first session. It doesn't have to be that, but as simple and as basic as that to get you going. But then, how do you advance that HIIT session? Well, there are 5 levers that we like to introduce into our programs at the Road Cycling Academy that could work well for you. Using our starting point tempo example, lever 1 is the intensity. So you could start at maybe bottom end tempo, work towards mid, upper, then start leveraging sweet spot, which we talked about earlier, and just gradually build as you progress your fitness. Lever number 2 is the time in effort itself. So using that tempo example we talked about earlier, you might start off with a 3 to 5 minute time in effort. And then the following week, you might add, if you're feeling you've got the fitness capacity for it, another 1 or 2 minutes to that tempo range, and you will gradually increase the time and effort as your fitness improves to a point where you start getting towards the end of that effort range. And depending on the person's fitness, could be 30 minutes, or for the more elite, they can spend up to 2 hours in that tempo range. Lever number 3 is the volume of repetitions. So using the tempo example, we talked about starting off with 2 to 3 repetitions in the first week. The following week, it might be 3 to 4. The week after might be 4 to 5, and then we need to rest. So you might have a rest week, and then you continue to progress as your fitness improves. Lever number 4 is reduce the time in recovery. So instead of the full 5-minute recovery we talked about at the start of the video, you might bring that down to a 2-minute recovery, but you wouldn't do that in one hit. You'd do that gradually in small 30-second to 1-minute increments as your fitness progresses. And lever number 5 is the cadence level you select for each interval. So slowing the cadence down during an interval, say 60 to 70 cadence, you're going to be working more of the muscular system. And if you increase the cadence, say 90 or 100 plus, you're going to be working more of the cardio system. So there are a lot of levers there. A good general rule is you want to leverage one of those levers each time you're looking to progress the difficulty of your high intensity interval training session. 2 maybe at the same time, but no more than 2, because we want to progress our HIIT training gradually. And a good general rule, particularly for those beginner to intermediate level riders, is you want to finish your high intensity interval training session feeling like you perhaps could have done 1, maybe 2 more efforts. In other words, you don't want to overcook it. Rule number 2 is you want to clarify your cycling goals. One big aspect to interval training you want to keep in mind is variability. You want to continue to mix things up, working different zones with different rest periods at different cadence levels, so we're continually shocking the working muscles in a smart and progressive way that will promote new physical adaptations. However, you definitely want to be thinking about your goals in cycling and favor those zones that are going to help you achieve those specific goals. So for example, if you wanted to beat your mates up a 30-minute climb, or you've got a time trial event that's 45 minutes in length, you want to be working zone 4. You want to favor zone 4 in training. If you want to roll more turns in the local bunch and you want longevity in the ability to keep rolling turns all day long, then when it comes to intervals, you're going to want to master zone 5 and even zone 6. That's not to say we forget about the other zones. We're just narrowing in more on those zones that align to our goals. Rule number 3 is, what do you enjoy doing the most? As a cycling coaching business, we see this one a lot. Members start to shy away from certain types of high intensity interval training sessions and lean more into others, even sometimes ones that don't necessarily align to their overall goals in cycling. If that is the case, so be it. Number 1, we're here to enjoy this activity, not do something that we don't enjoy doing. And number 2, if you enjoy it, you'll be more consistent with it. And consistency in cycling means you're going to get fitter and stronger on the bike. Rule number 4 is uncover what you respond best to. And hopefully you enjoy doing this one too. At the RCA, we recommend incorporating some testing protocols wedged into your training, whether it's a benchmark climb, an FTP test, how many turns you can roll in the local bunch. We'll leave that up to you. But over time, you want to go back and do those same tests and see if you're improving. If you're having some big improvements in how many turns you can roll in the local bunch, or your FTPs had a big shot up. You want to start to reflect on the type of training that you've been doing. What are the intervals that you've been doing in recent times? And that is typically a sign that those intervals, working that particular zone, is going to be beneficial for you longer term. We've seen over 500 members through the RCA as of today, and I can tell you right now, some members respond better to threshold work and other members respond better to VO2 max or even sprint training. So you will uncover what works best for you if you can incorporate some of this testing throughout your overall plan. If you're after more information on high intensity interval training and power training, don't forget we've got a free ebook which you can download below, and I'll catch you in the next video.